So let's move on to your economic outlook. I mean, as a fixed income investor, it's particularly important as any investor, but it's an input to your investment process clearly. And I guess just starting from kind of the headline, recession risk, you on one of your more recent webcasts put out a 75% probability.
Yeah, that was in the summer.
And then it came down.
It's down.
More recently.
It's down.
Not to hold you to these precise, because frankly, when someone says 40%, that how are you going to? Well, you were wrong. You were right.
That's kind of where I am now. Is around 40. Maybe it's 35 now even.
So it's just
because data's gotten a little bit better.
The odds are less than 50-50.
Well, we have, like I said, we have a meeting every week to talk about the environment and strategy and macro, and we go through like 200 charts. And a section that we always go through are these indicators that we've developed over the course of probably 20 years that we think reliably give you at least an idea about where you are in the economic cycle. So we go through those, and they've gotten worse for sure in the past 20 months or so. I mean, the nirvana period was back in January of 2018 when everything was looking very strong. Synchronized global growth, that was the narrative, and it was true. Yeah. But one by one, that's fallen apart, and there's parts of the world now that are anything but strong. I mean, the German manufacturing economy is a disaster. So there's these things like the PMI surveys that do manufacturing and services. Above 50 is expansion, below 50 is contraction. And it's pretty reliable that prior to recessions, you see a falling off the cliff sort of behavior of those surveys before the front edge of the recession is reached. And that happened this summer, but it has partially reversed, which is a positive thing. Also, high-yield bond spreads have remained fairly relaxed. I'm not looking at that as a highly important indicator right now because I think it has a lot to do with yield desperation around the world. But the leading indicators year over year from the Conference Board, there has never been a recession in the United States without those leading indicators first going negative. There are false signs, false positives on that, but it's a necessary condition for recession. And it's right now at 0.4, which is down there. It was up at 7% year over year about 15 months ago, and now it's at 0.4. The good news is that the numbers that are rolling off in the next few months are negative numbers. So it's going to hook back up. So that was looking a little dicey. That's got a little bit better. There's the surveys of consumers, which are notorious for tanking. It's almost definitional. When the consumer decides that things aren't so great anymore, they stop buying. But the best indicator of those that is really reliable is comparing consumers' attitudes about a year from now to the attitudes about today. Because weirdly, consumers can be very confident and feeling good about today and be confident about a year from now, but invariably, the year from now confidence starts to erode, even when the today is okay. And you get into this great big gap, and that developed in a way this summer that is highly suggestive of a recession in the next 12 months. That's why I was way up at 75 with the inverted yield curve, the leading indicators coming down and looking like they might go negative, and some of the surveys, CEO confidence in particular. Yeah. But a lot of these things, the PMIs, they've gotten a little bit better. However, since we have this political season, we might skate through because there's levers that I'm sure the administration plans on pulling to try. So. Well, let's just say you wanted to sculpt economic growth so that it was a little weaker in 2019 and got stronger in 2020. What might you do? Put on some tariffs so that consumers reduce their spending. I mean, I bought some outdoor furniture this summer because I had a need, and I got the bill, and it was a really eye-opener in real time because it said $2,000 plus tax plus shipping plus 25% tariff.
Really?
Right on the bill. Yeah. And I was thinking, I can well imagine some consumers going, that's an extra like, $400 or something, $500. I mean, maybe I can wait it out for next season, keep the old shabby stuff for another year, because the president keeps saying we're close to a deal. So we got this 25% staring us in the face, and yet we have this rhetoric that it might be temporary. So maybe you curtail consumer spending, and retail sales were negative a couple of times this year. Most recent month print came out negative. So maybe you push the spending forward, and then maybe in, say, April, you announce tariffs are off, and suddenly you might get this burst of patio furniture buying, right? That helps things out. Another thing you might do is you might weaken the economy through this tariff mechanism in order to get the Fed to soften rates a little bit, because we all know that monetary policy works with a lag. So you get the Fed to cut rates maybe, I don't know, 3 times, just to pick a random number, because that's what they've done is 3 times. And maybe that helps the growth. And then also, Larry Kudlow has been twice now, including this week.
I know you're a fan of his, by the way.
I like Larry, actually. I mean, he's...
Not what he says, but you like him.
I don't like the fact that he went from tariffs are the worst thing in the world to China's paying the tariffs. But he's done that because he's sort of required to with his job. But he's talking about tax cuts 2.0. And they have 2 suggestions that they've floated out there. One was a few months ago in the summer when things were looking pretty bad. Remember, in the summer, people were talking about a mid-meeting emergency 50 basis point rate cut was appropriate. That was actually in the air at that time. But Larry Kudlow said they were thinking about a payroll tax cut, which Obama did to help to cushion the global financial crisis in '09. That is just full-on stimulative. You know, it goes up to $139,000, and you can cut it by a few percent, and that would go almost directly into spending. This week, he didn't talk about payroll tax cuts. He talked about a 15% middle-class income tax rate, which would be a cut. And, of course, that would be a way of potentially stimulating things. Now, I doubt they can get that passed. But it is for the middle class. I mean, when elections coming up, it might be tough to run against the Trump administration on being all for billionaires and corporations when they're cutting middle tax rates. But all those things together could help, you know, skate us away from recession. But certainly, things are far less copacetic in terms of economic indicators than they were in the first part of 18. But happily, they're better than they were in, say, about the end of August this year.